Okay, so I'm not going to continue with any of my reading. I'm not going to continue with any of my lecturing. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. Any questions? Either now or in conversation. It's up to you.
Cara, have you heard of Bernard Gunther? Have you looked into any of his work? A lot of what he says ties in with what you were talking about.
Whose work again?
Bernard Gunther?
No.
He talks very much about the he talks very much about the esoteric and the spiritual side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much with you. I started off by researching chemtrails very purely
Mm-hmm.
in terms of weather modification and climate change.
Right.
But I've gradually moved on, and I very much agree with what you're saying in terms of the fact that there's a very dark side to it, there's a very spiritual side to it, and it's not something. There are many things in this world that we only see a certain amount of light, we only hear in a certain frequency, and just because we can't see it, we can't taste it, we can't feel it, it doesn't mean it's not there.
Doesn't mean it's not there, that's right.
Yeah. So Bernard Gunther would be very interesting for you to look at.
Right. I base a lot of what a lot of the spiritual basis of what I bring it's all about Rudolf Steiner, who was an amazing philosopher at the turn of the 19th century. He was very much in touch with Victor Schauberger, if you want some science. I mean, something hardcore like that. They had a lot of conversations and did a lot of work together. So he was a PhD as well. So that's where I begin to a certain extent. And if you go back, many of us read his work as prep for whatever, Steiner teaching or this and that. But 10, 15 years down the road, if you go back and read his work, you realize he wasn't talking about anything like he thought he was talking about. He's talking about this stuff. He often said that there were entities alive on this planet that were not human. He said that it wouldn't be too long before the world was covered by a web of some sort. This was in 1900, okay? He was talking about this stuff when you go back. There's a book I read just recently called The Karma of Untruthfulness. It's all about this stuff. It's amazing. He was a freaking genius. So anyway, yes, the esoteric component is huge, because let me ask you something. Is there, if all of this stuff is coming about, is it not to rob us of our free will? And if you rob somebody, if they're a human being, of their free will, is that not an esoteric crime of the highest order? So you've got to be interested in that part of this. You've got to. Yeah.
You were talking before about the machine imagination.
Yeah, how about that?
Now, are you aware of the Deep Dream project?
No.
Okay, so what some scientists are trying to do is to somehow, they're programming computers to sleep and dream, but also, so they're coming up with the computers generating images of what it's dreaming,
Mm-hmm.
and also a computer program for what a computer would see if it took psychedelic drugs.
So my first question.
This is real, look this up.
Oh yeah, this is all.
There are actual images of what, and it's very similar to what a human being would see on psychedelics.
They're looking for our imagination.
That's right.
All right? They can't find it because they don't have the sense organs to see it. Because otherwise, my first question to you was going to be why?
Well,
Why are they doing that?
They don't want just our bodies, they want the lot.
Well, that's primarily what they want. I think if they could excise that from us and just run off with it, they would. And leave our carcasses behind. But it isn't like that. It's not a material
They
thing.
want to be able to replicate every human experience
Mm-hmm.
that we can have.
Right, exactly. Now, there's another question. How come? Why?
Is that why we're just sort of being kept alive going on like this? Because it's a big experiment while they're doing it.
Well, she's got a point though. I mean, why not just destroy us? If the point is to destroy us and the world, then why not just get it over with? That goes back to how important we really are. Okay? Say again? They are feeding off our energy, there's no question about that. But that's just part of it.
Just
Yeah.
remember, no matter what I believe or anyone here believes, the most powerful people in the world, if you really look into it, whether in economics and finance or our example, really, is by pushing the journalists.
Right, right. I mean, just as a kind of a weird aside in what people, things that people believe in, there is a book called, well, there's a book on the tarot, and I can't remember what it's called now. It's about this thick, all right? And you will find photograph after photograph of it, of that book sitting on John Paul II's desk. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you believe. It matters what your adversary believes. Okay? So how come, though? Why do they want to, why would an artificial intelligence and whatever is behind that want to replicate everything that we can replicate? You know, Harold said, Harold said that there is, and I think he's right, that there is an organic hologram, that's what we create, and there's an inorganic hologram. And that has all of that in it. And I wonder if that's not the wool that's pulled over our eyes right now, is that inorganic hologram. If we could just get that, you know. Remember in Star Trek when they used to say end program? If we could just say end program, get rid of that, we might see our creation around that. And I suspect that our creation is probably exquisite. Beautiful beyond belief. So we have to figure out the end program part of this. And chemtrails is just a method. This is just the beginning. That's just the beginning. It's just the very beginning of the method of enslavement. But once we realize how very precious and rare we are, and why we're such a prize, we will regain our own power.
Well, it's probably because we don't really die.
Well, that's one thing, but they would say AI doesn't die
We're
either.
eternal.
Mhm.
No, our spirit's eternal, so...
Right. That, okay, fair enough. What else? I see Goddard out there. Do you have something to say, young man?
Me?
Yeah, you. This is one of my friends who's also very deeply entrenched in Rudolf Steiner.
Well, I was interested very much because that's my field of research, the music, how we understand ourselves from the background of the frequencies. There are 2 points. We can look at them as scientific fact, they exist, and we can deal with it. It's highly complex, but we have no idea how it has to do with life. And then again, when we see beings like children or animals, we would have an experience of music, but have no knowledge about the intricate science behind. Then we realize how real it is, and how it's hard to believe that one cannot meddle with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like inviting to manipulation.
Yeah, and you know, using frequency to create or destroy is well documented. Absolutely well documented.
And destroy a cell or a virus with frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And leave everything untouched.
Yeah. So, what else, guys? It's a big subject, isn't it?
It's
not-
into transhumanism so much because some of the people in control, or trying to be in control, do have some sort of conscience and know when they die they're going to have to pay the price. Almost, I don't know if comes the right word, but they don't want to pay the ferryman for the stuff they've done in his lifetime, so they're trying to merge with machines so they're to be immortal, like weird sci-fi.
There's a repertoire.
Yeah.
Yes, 6 heart transplants. Don't you wonder where he's getting those hearts, man? He's just gone through his 6th heart transplant. There could be something to that. If there could be something to that, but I have a hard time imagining a thought process like that for these kinds of beings. I think it's just rapacious. On a certain level, it's very, you know, it's just a rapacious grab, you know, for what a human being has, whether it's energy or ability, and it's in the moment. Yeah, kind of a rending, tearing sort of thing. Yeah.
You mentioned before that you had some children who had damaged senses, and they couldn't do things that
Yeah.
children could do 15 years ago.
Yeah.
What are those things that they cannot do?
Well, what we work with in Steiner schools are 12 senses, and I don't ask me to rattle them off for you right now because I end up working with the early 4 to 6 myself with the children, the age group of the children that I work with. One of those is the sense of movement, okay? And it gets derailed if we don't put our feet on the ground and walk. I don't know how popular it is here, but in most countries in the world, parents are putting their babies on these little scooter thingies and pulling them around. They look kind of like scooters. If our feet don't touch the ground and we don't walk, and we don't get down and touch the ground, and we don't move actively like children used to move, certain senses don't activate. And if we hook ourselves up to a plasma screen, then we become extremely placid, and our neurology is disrupted and overrun and overridden. And I mean, that's just one of the, for example, one of the reasons that there's a Waldorf school, they call it Steiner School here, I think, in Silicon Valley, and these are executives at the kinds of companies that you would expect them to be executives at, and they take their children to the Waldorf school because they know they won't be engaging with technology until at least the age of 12, because they know it wrecks them. It wrecks their neurology, it wrecks their ability to create, it wrecks their imagination, and they want whole people. So isn't that interesting that the executives of these Silicon Valley firms take their children elsewhere to a pedagogy that keeps both hemispheres talking to each other? By the way, that separation of the hemispheres is absolutely artificial. It's not natural. It's induced by one single brain thinking that was brought about by the focus of the Industrial Revolution. Compartmentalization that was brought about by the Industrial Revolution, all right? And the oligarchs who hired people to create these systems, you know, that brought us down to one task instead of contexts. Okay, because they wanted to disempower the workforce. That helped to separate these hemispheres. Okay, that's artificial.
Can I add something to that? I'm in education too, and I've been reading a lot about children's brains and brain development, particularly when they're involved too much with screens. It's been documented quite, and there's lots of evidence because insurance companies are following through that peak players are having more rear enders because the depth perception, when you're looking at a screen, the depth perception area of the brain isn't growing in the same way as perhaps it did for me. And it's even more the case for children that live in cities and closed in environments where they can't see out to the horizon, that you're not developing the same level of depth perception. And insurance companies are now looking at that with P platers because there tends to be more rear enders, and people saying it's because they're distracted on their phones while they're driving and whatever. But there is actually something about a reduction in depth perception. So that's just one practical example of how children are affected by technology.
Right, and
the way we live.
in our classrooms, we find that they're not really in their hands anymore.
Just a quick one.
They're up here.
I've seen documentaries on ancient civilizations. I think they were in Africa. They get their kids on the ground, walking around as soon as possible.
Right.
And what they actually do, they're helping out the community. They're not degrading people. They're affecting water. They're helping out.
Right.
A lot more adults.
Right. I mean, this is the work of the child. That is the work of the child. And I found when I encountered my latest class, which I took when they were in class 2, that they weren't in their hands at all. At all. They're all up here. And they couldn't really do much here. They couldn't form a circle. They couldn't form a straight line as entities. Do you know, they were too much here. So what we do, you know, if you're interested in the Steiner schools, is we get them doing more handwork and things like that, which affects their neurology. And we try to heal that. So.
Most disturbing is children who are living in a virtual reality. I'm observing more and more children running around in playgrounds in Melbourne, making video game noises while they're playing. And they're not here. They're in a screen, and they've been put in front of a screen so much that that's where they are. And they're actually out there in the playground with other kids, but their mind is still in the video game. They're making the sounds and the movements. It's really disturbing. I'm seeing it more and more.
Because the younger children live into what's in front of them. All right. Yeah.
There is Steiner Street here, but I'll try to higher sensory, there are lots of things. And now they come back to the system, and to put it in spinal schools, now they've got refrigerated
Yeah, you have to pay for that. That's the thing about,
they're making it possible to put a lot of these children.
there's nothing wrong with homeschooling.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Obviously.
You know, I've homeschooled my children off and on for various reasons as we've gone through the years, out of necessity. There's nothing wrong with homeschooling. Did you know in Germany it's illegal to homeschool your children? You will go to jail.
They make a party too. I just had my son in homeschool
Yeah.
a year or so, and now he's back in the system,
Right.
which is the worst thing they've done.
Well-
It's just plunged to,
Yeah, and I understand that Steiner schools need to charge money,
yeah.
and that's a problem. However, I always say to people, if you love your children, please find an alternative for them. Get them out of the state schools. You know, my two youngest children both asked me at about age 16 if they could just stop, and I said, you bet, because they had to go to a state secondary school. I wanted them out of there as soon as I could get them out of there, because it has nothing whatsoever to do with education.
The control over them as well. Like I've begged my children, my eldest is 27 now, but I beg them, please stay home. And the manipulation of thinking they have to.
Right. There's always the social. Yeah, that's the brainwashing and the propaganda. But they're social creatures as well, so it's really hard when everybody else is going to a certain place for them not to go. But it's really, really important that we walk away from the school system that is in place. It's very, very important. Yeah.
I've got another question. Moving away from children that we're talking about frequency and resonance. You know the noises that have been recorded around the earth?
Yeah, the groans and the deep things.
Yeah, do you know anything about?
I don't know anything about it, but it's a marvelous thing to speculate about, I think.
Yeah.
I believe that Sophia is alive. I believe that Sophia is a spirit, a spiritual cosmic being, all right, an entity. Now, how that spiritual cosmic entity could manifest communication, that's really anybody's guess at this point. It could also be a cry of distress in some way. There's a lot going on to destroy this planet right now. The main thing that comes to mind is fracking. It's a massive assault on this planet's memory. That's about, as I said before, water holds memory. There's all kinds of evidence for that. The memory of the planet is in her water. They're destroying her water for no good reason by fracking. I think they're destroying the memory of the planet, or trying to anyway. Anybody else have an idea about these noises that are being made?
I was wondering if maybe they weren't part of this whole kind of like, because, you know, you can destroy things with resonance and
Yes, you
frequency
can.
and sound.
Yes, you can.
And I'm just wondering if it's some sort of experimentation that, you know, and they don't have to explain themselves. They can make whatever noise and do whatever the hell they like. And we can just hear it and we're all like, what the hell's that?
Right, well, it could be, and that would be Tesla-ish,
Yeah.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I hope that's not what it is.
Yeah, so do I. But yeah, that was my thought.
Other questions or comments? Yeah.
Sorry, just picking up that point before about fracking.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, there was a big rally up in Lismore, near Byron Bay, where you're going,
Yeah.
about 40k inland. And, or out of Lismore, technically, about 15k west, or place called Bentley. And it was a successful blockade there that, for a presence over about 4 months,
Yeah.
5 months, people staying on camp, and it was like there was like 3 potential entrances to this farm's property. We've given the green light to go ahead for this exploratory research by Santos, and it was going. There was a duty system, a roster system in place for being present at the gates 24/7 throughout the night. And also vigil areas where you'd be spotting through binoculars and so forth, radios. It was a real like guerrilla activity with people staying on camp. Could be anywhere between 100 to 500 depending on the weekend days, times.
Yeah.
One Saturday, there was this chemtrails from dawn till dusk, and they were laid down according to the change, the wind direction changed through the day. So they shifted. I counted 23, just directly above
Right,
our campsite.
right.
And I thought, well, what's that point? It's not just that it's like it's
Saturation.
also a war against the people who are protecting against the activity.
Yeah, they target certain areas. I've
Yeah.
found that, like festivals, like
And
Glasgow, festivals like Compest here and there.
Woodstock.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Well, it does appear to be situational. Yeah, it does appear to be situational. In London recently, we just had a transition, a change of power subsequent to this Brexit thing. And the skies were just drowning in chems during that changeover. I was also in Heidelberg during the last general election when Merkel was re-elected, and it was just about at that time that Obama was trying to get Germany to be the spear point, the tip of the spear into Syria, and Germany was refusing to do that. And that was the worst episode of chemtrails I've ever lived through. I literally thought I was going to drown that day. I couldn't believe what was coming down. But not only could I not believe what was coming down, I couldn't believe that very few people were realizing what was coming down. Okay? That's the other thing, yeah?
Do you reckon at the end of all this, they're going to lose? Yes.
I know they're going to lose.
Because we're awake to it now?
How can they win?
It's like a snowball effect from now on?
We
Yeah.
have to use our imagination.
Well, thank you. It's all about the imagination. Can you imagine them not winning? Do it. Do it now, all day, every day. Yep,
I've got a question, probably a bit off topic, but did you sort of in your book?
yeah.
What do you know about the black goo?
Well, that's Harold's field of study, but I will tell you that the black goo actually showed up in the Sun Thief, and I didn't realize it. I'll tell you this story. Okay, my mother died on 7/11. 7/11 has become an extremely important number to me. It's a marker. It's how I know, scientific or not, that this is something I need to pay attention to. It's my mother talking to me. She's with me most of the time. If I see a 7/11, it means something. There are other numbers I have that are like that, but this is very special. On July 11th, of that same year, we were also going through the Gulf oil spill. All right. Now, my understanding, the story that has been told about that situation is that actually was about sentient oil, that was about bringing out black goo, and that most of the countries in the world who had nuclear subs were there trying to harvest some black goo. Okay? On July 11th, on the day she died, that was the day that the French sub rose to the surface with many, many of the naval seamen dead from having handled this substance. Okay? Because that happened on 7/11, to me that meant something, that I was supposed to look into the credibility of this. Then I realized when I was working for Ike at TPB that there was a portion in the Sun Thief. I put every vision I had in the Sun Thief as I was writing that book. There's a portion in there that is a vision that I had of my mother sitting in a break room of some sort. I'm going to say it was Virginia at work at the naval station there, because that's what it looked like. She was sitting at a table under fluorescent lighting, and she was doing two things that she never did. She was smoking a cigarette. My mother was a musician. She never would have done that. And she had a Brock's caramel, the kind that used to be wrapped in cellophane, the squares or the cubes. And she was chewing on that. Another thing she never would have done, which means to me the name Brock is probably important in this, although I've never figured out why. And as she had a notebook in front of her, like a yellow legal pad, and there was writing on it that I couldn't read, and across the top, all I could see was top secret. That's all I could see. I don't know what it said. Now, as I'm having this vision, down the walls and up through the sink, and everywhere comes this green viscous fluid. I haven't heard about black goo or sentient oil for years yet. That's years in the future. And the only thing I could think of to describe what that looked like was antifreeze. That consistency and that color, yeah? Well, it turns out that in this other scenario, that the black goo in its inert state is one thing, but when it becomes active, when it comes up to temperature, it's called antifreeze. That's the code name for the black goo in its active state, is antifreeze. Well, I realized that I had been given this vision of sentient oil, and it was in the freaking book, and God knows what else is still in there, really, you know, that I haven't figured out yet. I happened to be at TPV, and the only person I could think of who was not going to call me a lunatic for bringing this story was Ike. So I told Ike about this, and he said, come on, I got to talk to you in the office. And he just sort of kind of listened, and he said, oh, well, I don't have any problem believing sentient oil. That was kind of like the end of that. But interestingly enough, it's in the Sun Thief. So I have to take it has to have some credence for me. Because that, for me, was really random that I would come up with something like that and put it in the book. And then spend the rest of my life trying to figure out what the hell she was trying to tell me with this.
Do you
Go.
Do you think the black goo is connected to the artificial intelligence?
Yes, I do. I think that there are.
Sentient-
Well, I will tell you, listen, I will tell you what Harold thinks, because this is his realm. It's not my realm. My realm is the social engineering. He thinks there are two kinds. He thinks there's a very deep, natural black goo, and there's an AI that came from elsewhere. That there are two kinds. Could be. I mean, there are people who are postulating right now that our computers are infected with an AI, and that there is actually a predator out there who looks for solid-state technology. Right? I know that there's a fellow who's bringing this postulate. I'm desperate to get a look at what he's got, but it hasn't really come out yet. But yes, a lot of people do postulate that black goo is what's in the computers, and that it's an infection. I don't know what Harold's doing with that right now.
So, Harold, he said a while ago that he believed that the Earth had already won the battle.
Yeah. That the Earth had already won the battle? I think what he said, if I'm not mistaken, and I was pretty close to this phenomenon, was that evil had won, and that what he said was that evil had won, and that if we would just accept that, we could get on with our existence. Now, having said that, this entity, this amazing entity that is Harold Katzfella, okay? Last September, he decided that, and he started saying that, and he also decided that he had been in contact with two alien or supernatural beings that were going to save the world. Well, this is the savior programming. It's very common. And Harold tends to fall prey to things like that. It doesn't negate his work. Prior to that, he was gone for about 9 months, and then I started coming up with this new stuff. I started discovering this new stuff that I brought out, which is the false chronology, which, by the way, there's tons of scientific evidence to back that up, coming out of Russia. And this idea of the Fae as a seed race. And what I said was, well, I've got this new interesting stuff coming out. Can Harold be far behind? And sure enough, he's popped up, and he's out and about again. So I don't know what's going on with him, but this is just Harold. And I don't know that he's doing any work on sentient oil right now. Yeah. Yep.
I just had a question about imagination.
Yeah.
If it's such an important part of it all, do you have any more advice or guidance on how we can use our imagination more effectively to help us with what we need to do?
Well, first of all, you just have to recognize it's there. That's job one, okay? The imagination has been relegated to the dustbin for decades. It's just your imagination. It's just a figment of your imagination. Oh, that's just your imagination, right? Recognize that it's there. Practice, if you want to. You can practice, you don't want to say materializing things, but manifesting things. People do that. They practice manifesting. I don't do it, but doesn't mean that, and the reason I don't do it is because we do it all day, every day anyway. We just don't know that we do it. But if you consciously focus on, well, this may be what I'm doing, I think it makes you more aware of your imagination. We do it all day anyway. It's what we do, it's who we are. So if you get taught that it's just your imagination, you're really getting taught to discount yourself, aren't you?
I think maybe we should use it in ways that benefit us more.
Maybe, but who's to say what that is, really? I mean, yes, okay, that's true. One of the things that you can do is learn how to tune out the noise. There's a meditative practice that Steiner used to try to teach us. It's not easy. It's like there are 6 exercises he left. The first one is an exercise that teaches you how to tune out the noise. It's hard, man. It's really freaking hard. You just choose an object, it could be anything, a pencil, a paperclip, whatever, and there's like a whole outline of the way to do this. You concentrate on that, and you try to concentrate on that for a full 5 minutes and nothing else. That is really, really hard. And the exercise gets even harder when you keep that same object. Even when your mind is going, oh my God, a pencil, not again. That's when you really have to keep it. Because you're exercising that muscle even more. Just that one thing, I think. Just that one thing. Because it shuts off the noise. And if you can learn to consciously shut off the noise, then you can be more aware of intent, motive. What are you really trying to do? Who really is you that's talking instead of all this stuff, man? If I could just do one thing, I would do that, besides throwing out your TV. I would also say that, throw out your TV now. Somebody else had something, though. What was it? Yeah?
I'd just like to say, I've got a pretty simplistic view about it all.
That's okay.
I think we're engaged in a battle just between good and evil.
Yeah?
The evil side of things wants to control.
Yeah?
And it's motivated by fear.
Yeah?
And the opposite is love and faith. And to me, from reading I've done from the past, it's been like that from the beginning, this war. And it's with humans, because humans have free choice. Like animals just seem to have a program that they've been created with. And they just go for it, and they just do what they need to do. But humans always have a choice. And that's our dilemma. Is that, you can choose to go either way.
Right.
And I see what's happening now as a culmination in this age where good and evil are becoming really polarised. Like black and white, there's no more multi-shades of grey sitting on the fence. We have to actually decide, which side we're on. And I think that is the root of everything that's going on in the world right now.
Right.
And
Well, go ahead, sorry.
and that, the truth will shine like a light, and evil will get darker and darker. And, put it simplistically, I see it as the devil being the illusory, and his hordes or multitudes manipulating people. And on the other side, the creator that made us in his image, that we are meant to aspire after. But we haven't been forced to go that way. We've been given a choice to choose that. So it's like these two different dimensions, and there's a war going on, a spiritual war that we can't see, but it's manifesting through people who are leaning either way. But I can see that there's a huge momentum of truth and light happening worldwide right now.
Right.
And even Jesus spoke about, when he was here, he said, the spirit of Antichrist is at work. He talked about that evil spirit. And at the end of this age, we'll see the culmination of all the, the New World Order, bundle government, the controlling, fearful, evil, dominant.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's powerful to see things simply. I do. You don't get cluttered up when you see things simply. One hesitates to verbalize this idea of it being a battle between good and evil, even if it is, simply because you want your whole audience to kind of take it, and put it in the places that are meaningful for them. But there are negative entities in this world. There's evil in this world. The problem with evil is part of what's going on in this world.
And that's what I find so disgusting about this whole humanistic agenda. I just reread the manifesto, the humanistic manifesto of having covered in the bookcase for 40 years actually.
Yeah.
Just reread it and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, it's everything the Agenda 2030 is putting forth.
I
It's
know.
all the same.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Have you ever read the Jesuit Oath?
no.
Anybody here ever read the Jesuit Oath?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it the most brutal, bloodthirsty, evil, ridiculous thing you've ever... And we have a Jesuit Pope now. Read it. Look it up. The Jesuit Oath. You won't believe it. You will not believe it. Okay, so saying it simply is a good thing. It is simple, really. They're throwing everything they have at us, and they haven't won. What does that tell you? It should tell you that you're mighty. It should tell you that you can't be beaten, really. I mean, it's really getting old, and it's really getting tiresome. And my children are sick. Oh, I want to remind everybody, by the way, that we are the bridge generation. We are very, very, very important. Because we remember blue skies. We remember healthy children. We really have a clean, firm memory of all this. That means they're just waiting for us to die. That's the reality. We are really, 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 really important, our generation, because we're the link between what was and what is right now. Our children don't have a reference point on this plane. Okay? They think being sick all the time is normal. They do. And it's not. And as a matter of fact, I know I'm getting somewhere because I was having a conversation with my oldest son. My children tend to mock me. Go figure. And but I was having a conversation with my oldest son before I came here. And he said, so Mom, what's up with chemtrails? Where are we standing with chemtrails now? And I thought, sweet. You know? And I said, well, this is being filmed, and I will show you the link when I get it, and you can see what's up with chemtrails right now. But I said, the thing that you need to remember, my son, is that your generation is here to turn the tide. Your generation is here to deal with this. That's why you're under the assault that you're under right now. My generation, the bridge generation, is here to hold back the dike, to hold it back, so that you have time to deal with this. That's why they're here. That's why they're under the brutal assault that they're under. And they are. They're being absolutely hammered from the minute they're born, before they're born. It starts the assault. Anyway, what else?
I think we've got to do it before we go.
Okay. All right, you got it. You got to do it before we go. Did you have a question or a statement?
While we're here.
Yeah.
How do you spell the caramel that you...
Oh, Brox. B-R-A-C-H-S.
It sounded like Morocco.
No, Brox. No.
They're like...
No, I don't know what that name means even yet.
One other suggestion is to look at Clifford Cardigan
Yep.
for information regarding the nanotechnology.
Absolutely. And Morgellons and all that stuff. Carnicom science is at the highest
It's
order.
at the highest level, so
Yeah.
do some homework there.
Yep, absolutely. That's a great way to kind of have a look. And he's got a microscopy. He's got pictures of everything. It's good. It's good to see. He's in New Mexico, so yep.
Would you like to talk about CERN?
I can speculate about CERN, and I love to speculate about CERN, but let us remind ourselves that I'm speculating. CERN recently put out a call for artists. How come? Why in the hell would CERN put out a call for artists?
What did they stand about?
They didn't.
Really?
They didn't. See, CERN is an enigma. It really is. Why is it actually here? For me, for one thing, you have to understand that there's a statue outside that building in Geneva of Kali. Inside there, one of the calibration machines is nicknamed Shiva. No, it's the other way around. Shiva's outside, Kali's on the inside. No, I'm not joking.
That's so obvious.
It's very obvious, isn't it? It's very obvious. And they just put out a call for artists. I hope nobody responded. So who knows what they're trying to do? Some people think they're trying to form a wormhole. They can't be good whatever they're doing as far as I'm concerned.
Is there any truth, the red wine test thing? Is that,
The wine test, yes, supposedly, yeah. Absolutely, you're supposedly be able to swish your mouth out with red wine, spit it into the sink, and see all kinds of critters.
Try it, but just
Try it.
Just in or like there's stuff in it, I don't know if it's really.
Yeah, let's see. Try it and tell me. I haven't done it.
Would I move you around?
They weren't moving around, but there's stuff in it.
It's supposedly the only thing that you can do that will create that effect. So, you can't swallow the red wine, you have to spit it out. Okay, so CERN, yeah. No, go ahead, I'm done with it. I mean, this is speculation.
You mentioned something that the Russians used before. You said something like.
Yeah, this is the chronology. Is it the false chronology? Yes. There is a man called and I've done an episode on this too. I've tried to consolidate what I've read of this man's research. This man is a top astronomer, statistician, and mathematician working at the university, head of the University of Moscow, some department of the University of Moscow, I think it's statistics, who has with him now a team of about 100 of the same caliber scientists who have determined that the chronology that we use, the timeline that we use is false, and that there is at least one period of time where about 1,000 years was inserted into the timeline. This is proved statistically, this is proved astronomically. The way that we keep track of events and time is by predictable astronomical events, whether it's eclipses or the perturbations of the moon, all of these things that we find to be predictable. This is how we keep track of time. And there was a period of time where none of that held true, supposedly. All right. There are two things that you can think. You can either think that the chronology is mistaken, a man-made thing, or you could think that the moon in particular lost its ever-loving mind for about 300 years and then righted itself. Well, they felt like a mistake in the chronology was probably more probable, Occam's razor kind of thing, okay? And they set about proving that, and they did prove it statistically. This guy's name is Anatoly Fomenko. He's got several volumes of proof out, including comparing statistically in ways that are accurate to about 1 billion to 1, that many dynasties that we consider to be separate dynasties are actually the same dynasty, but we spread that out over time to kind of create these centuries that actually didn't exist. What I compiled was the result of looking at 4,000 pages of research and 42 videos to have a look. Now this goes to the workbook. This is the second volume of the Imagination series. It's Dangerous Imagination, Silent Assimilation. Then it's the workbook, and it's the workbook for a reason, okay? I'm putting out each episode at the recommendation of a guy called Duncan Rhodes. He lives here, doesn't he? And he said to me, you should make episodes, you should serialize this. And that's because each one of these episodes is really a standalone, radical concept. And you should live with it for a while and then do your own research, which means that all my primary sources are there for you to have a look. Anatoly Fomenko speaks English and he has his own website. So if you want to get it from the horse's mouth and you can, speak that language, please go, do it. Absolutely. I also recommend that if you can and you want to wade your way through the astronomy and the statistics and the math, buy his books, because I promise you they're going to start disappearing. In Russia and in non-English speaking Europe, there is a massive, aggressive pushback against what is supposedly our timeline, because it is patently false. And people have been saying it's patently false since Isaac Newton. The last thing he did before he died was publish a book about the timeline, about the chronology. We call it Scaligerian chronology because it was Joseph Scaliger, a Jesuit, and his partner Dennis Patau, who became Dionysius Batavius, and a cadre of Benedictine monks who created this chronology for us. all original documents that went to this chronology no longer exist. What a shock. They've been destroyed. You can't check the veracity. You can only have faith in the copies that were put out by this little team.
Would that have affected the Mayan calendar, though?
I'm not sure about the Mayan calendar. That's quite a ways back, but probably, because he says that Egypt is about 2,000 years closer to us than we think it is. Those sorts of things. Rome is a lot closer to us than we think it is, and it was probably, and not probably, it was to a statistical certainty happening at the same time that you had the Habsburg dynasties. There are mentions of the Habsburg dukes in Roman histories. We're just not privy to those, particularly in the English-speaking world. But there are records of the Habsburg dukes being granted privileges in the Roman Empire and being at gladiator contests. It's not something we think about, is it? As having happened at the same time. So that's episode 1, false chronology. Episode 2 is about a seed race, which I'd rather not get into tonight. But I am lecturing about the seed race at Byron Bay, and we will be filming that, and you can find that on my author's page as well. Yes? And it's all about hiding things from us. Yep.
On false chronology, have you ever come across Gore Vidal's novel, Live at Golgotha, which he wrote in the 80s?
Did he? No, I don't know that
And it was
one.
about the internet, which hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
Of course, his associations went very high up.
Yeah.
So he knew about all of it. And
Yeah.
it was about sending people back in time to refilm the story of Jesus because it had been wiped from the internet.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, the false, I don't know about that, but I'm going to look for it.
Because it's the technology that's happening now with people wiping stuff from the internet.
Right.
So it's wiping
Well,
memory.
wiping memory. It's all about wiping memory. Astronomically speaking, if you look at the events that were supposed to have occurred to mark the birth of Jesus Christ, he's a medieval character. And that's proved. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going around about the Mandela effect.
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff, and I have not investigated that, but I have reason to believe that this is another memory psyop. If you watch my author's page on Facebook, you'll see this stuff pop up, and people do ask me about the Mandela effect. And it's one of those things, you know, it's really interesting because the things that people get the most pissed off about are these things that I find you really need to keep an eye on. The flat earth theory is one of them. People will tear you limb from limb over that thing, okay? Why? But I tell you what, it's not something I argue the toss over, but I will say that if you have a situation where there's a movement to make known that the chronology is absolutely false, and that's verified by spherical astronomy, what is one of the first things you're going to do? Maybe it's discredit that. Maybe it's bring something in like the flat earth theory. And since we're all glued to a freaking 2D screen now as it is, that's probably not too hard to get us to go there. Okay? But the thing about those sorts of things, the Mandela effect is turning out to be one of those as well, and the flat earth theory, is that people get rabid about it. They absolutely eat your face off. The question is why? To me, that's AI. To me, that's emotional. That's emotionally driven in a way that's absolutely unnatural. I think we could speculate about that. All right, the reactions should not be vicious, and they tend to be. Yeah.
You talked about earlier on in the presentation. You say someone suggested that the planes that hit the towers were.
Yeah, John Lear.
So, are you So, is it to say that there's like a power, like an entity that manipulates our frequency to make it think that something physical is there?
Manipulating our frequency in the sense that they manipulate the plasma. I mean, we're surrounded by a giant plasma screen right now. They can put anything out there they want. That, yes. So in that way, yes. And if you look at John Lear, it's L-E-A-R, okay? And he shows the imagination of these planes, these holographic images into the side of the building. and then judge for yourself based on his evidence, yeah?
I've seen some videos about it. I tend, I feel like, it may be video editing, because I've seen a video where in the second plane that hit the South Tower, that it'll go behind a building, like the video imagery doesn't make sense kind of thing.
Yeah.
So these people can manipulate physical things in the air for us to believe that it's there.
Supposedly that's one of the goals, is to have a plasma screen up there at all times that they can project anything they want to on. Yeah?
I was there on that day and I can tell you it was a beautiful blue sky. That might have been projected plasma, but there were no chemtrails on that day that I saw. And I'd seen chemtrails there in the weeks before and certainly afterwards. But on that day, the sky over New York City was that colour.
Yeah.
Of that blue screen.
Yeah.
No, I know because I thought, wow, there's no trails, and I left all my apartment windows open. And on that morning, and everybody was saying what a beautiful morning it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I got out of Manhattan just before it happened. But I remember looking up at the sky and thinking, no trails today. And that was back in 2001. And
Right.
we were seeing trails.
For a while. For a while, yeah. There are people who actually research the old pilot's manuals and training manuals for the Air Force and things like that all the way back to the 40s. And there is not one mention of a condensation trail. So there's mention of condensation because that's important to pilots. But textbook after textbook after manual, no one talks about a condensation trail. Yep.
Cara, have you heard about, in Seattle, some people reported, I only found about this after it actually happened to me. We were staying with some friends in Seattle, and when it was very, very quiet, like if you got up late at night and went to the bathroom, you would hear this
humming.
It was more than a humming, it was like, imagine a machine room going, you could actually hear this.
Yeah.
Maybe not with your ears.
With your bones.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of speculation about that kind of phenomenon as well. There's a lot of speculation about that kind of phenomenon. It could be heart, It could be the Gwen Towers. They're operating at demonic levels, right? There are lots and lots and lots of things that are buzzing, constantly buzzing.
Yeah, this was extraordinary.
And if you hear it, you can hear frequency in your bones. So it could be just something in your area was turned on that night. And you got to hear it. Yeah. Yes?
How come do you think only half the population can actually see chemtrails and the other half deny it or just can't see them? Because I've had conversations with some people and they're absolutely oblivious.
Right. For the reasons, it's social engineering. It's for the reasons that I've outlined in my part of Dangerous Imaginations. We're trained to not see these things. They don't call them cell phones for nothing, all right? We're walking around with our own prison right in front of our faces, okay? And half of us are the bridge generation, and half of us are kids who don't know anything else. They don't know anything else. Human beings don't want to believe that there's any kind of entity that would do this kind of thing to them. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons that they don't want to engage. It's really scary. And once you engage, you almost have to do something about it, right?
And you can't pretend you don't know.
Right, you can't pretend you don't know anymore. So, yep.
What about black chemtrails?
Yeah, I've seen them. I've actually seen them. Interestingly enough, I saw one flying over Iceland 3 years ago maybe, when it was daylight 24 hours a day. We were above the clouds and this plane was going this way and it's throwing out a black chemtrail. I still don't know what's in the black chemtrails. No one can tell me that. But I've seen it myself at altitude.
get
Well,
more.
I watched a show that said that was making this ice snow melt just as much as what was
Well, yeah. And there's also shadows. People have been reminding me that you're talking about as well. So you're talking about dense, dense aerosol projections that will cast a shadow as well. But that's not a black chemtrail. I know what you're talking about because I've seen them.
and it might be, they think they're not sure where the black ash is coming from.
Yeah, well, this is, part and parcel of the weather modification that they're doing. I mean, there's a price to pay. There's a result. It's not always just about making things rain. It's also about making things dry. It's about winning wars. It's about making hurricanes. It's about seriously interrupting a cosmic process, right? Now, I believe that not only is the chemical warfare affecting the elemental world. When I say elemental, I mean, air, water, fire, and earth spirits. But I also believe that they're trying to help, that they're engaged in this battle as well. Some people will say that they can see the spirits of the air, in the air, trying really hard to deal with what's in the air.
Have you seen pictures of orbs actually getting into the chemtrails and shooting something into
I
it
have
and
not.
getting out?
What do you think that is? I haven't seen that.
What are the orbs? Do we know?
Well, there you go. Is it a man-made thing, or is it, what is
I don't
it?
think it is. It doesn't look like it's anything hard object. It looks just semi-transparent.
I will always contend that this battle is taking place in the unseen worlds, far more than it's taking place in the physical world as well. And that you and I are engaged in that battle in the unseen world right now as we're sitting here as well. So it's a big subject, and it all ends up for me, as you can see, in this idea of the human imagination. And that being our power and our ability to change things and bring things to a screeching halt, which we really need to do. But you have to understand that you have that. You have to believe that you can do it. You have to take the evidence in front of your eyes that did it, that you manifest via your imagination every single second of every single day. And then understand that you can use that. You can say no. You can put your toys down, turn around, and walk away. And if people aren't participating, that's a big part of it as well. Don't play. Butter.
In terms of the social engineering, wouldn't you say that it's also vital for our own inner survival that we work on what we call the positive social engineering? Like when you are teaching children,
Right.
for instance.
Right. Yes, it is. I think that the way I view that, though, because of my temperament, is protection. It's really a protection of the children until such time as they're not under the threat that they're under right now. And that is why these schools were developed and put into place, was to protect the children, to give them a place where they can be, where they can incarnate properly, all things going well. And there are these little pods of protection for us around the planet. And yes, the positive, this is what it means, I think, by positive social engineering. There are philosophical movements out there that their fruits is how you know them. It's not really as much an inward, concentration on yourself and all of that, as much as it is a taking it out into the world, for positive change. He's right about that, concentrating on the positive social engineering. That's the task of a lot of people. We can all do that.
Is all aluminium bad for you?
There's a natural aluminum. I don't really know what it does, and it's present in the world in very, very minute quantities. okay? You're not supposed to ingest it. It's not supposed to be in your body at all. So yeah, I would have to say yeah, all aluminum. I think I could go there and say all aluminum is bad for you. Strontium is a bone marrow seeker. You've heard that, aluminum, that's like the trilogy everybody always rolls out. Aluminum, barium, strontium, right? Well, strontium is a bone marrow seeker. It destroys red and white blood cells. Now, can I ask you what the hell that has to do with global warming? I mean, that's one of the first things that made me snap on this issue. None of this stuff has anything to do with global warming. I mean, forget whether or not we believe global warming exists. That's beside the point at this point. None of it has anything to do with that anyway, even if it does exist. Bone marrow seekers that destroy your red and white blood cells cripple your immune system. Simple. And our kids are sick, are they not? Our kids are sick unto death all the time. I don't want that for them. That's why I'm doing this. I don't want that for them. And I will go down swinging. Yes.
What do we do?
What shall we do? Imagine, I'm not kidding. I know it sounds trite and ridiculous, but imagine something else. It's the most powerful thing in the world. If you can imagine something different, okay, then it's right around the corner.
It's like what everything we've been talking about today. It's like you said, what do you do? It's like
What
it
do
doesn't
you
change
do?
your everyday life. You still, it starts with
Well,
the individual. It starts with the individual.
It does, and we live in a
It
belief
starts with
system.
all, each and every one of us making the changes and using your imagination more.
Yeah.
And showing everyone else how to do it, and that's how we make change.
Right, and you know, but we do live in a belief system, and so there are things you can do to clean out your body, there are things that you can do to affect the acidity or alkalinity of your body, and I think that that's really important. We need an alkaline body. You can achieve an alkaline body by taking a teaspoon of organic baking soda in a glass of water every day. For about 3 weeks, you've got an alkaline body. It's a much healthier body. How simple is that? Fight back, you know, on a material level, for sure. Okay?
Zeolite's a good too.
Hmm?
Zeolite clay, it's a microcrystalline clay that's really good to get better stuff for you.
Right.
Have very good results.
Yeah,
Right.
Jack personalities will say
Take vitamin D3 because you're not getting any. I promise, you're not getting any D. Take it in substantial amounts. I do. Vitamin C, thousands and thousands of milligrams every day. Iodine. Research this stuff. That's the constant battle, actually, to clean out your body and to stay ahead of what they're throwing at it. But you can. There's all kinds of research going on with that, too. All right?
You can just program your body to do all that stuff.
Well, you can. Yes, you can.
You
You
don't
have to
have to
believe
take
that you can.
You don't have to take the risk.
You have to believe that you can. Now, that's the thing. We live in a belief system. That's part of the problem. This belief system that's been artificially constructed around us and foisted on us and shoved down our throats. But we can throw that off, too. Okay, so unless there's something else, I'm going to sign books for anybody who wants them signed. And if you don't, that's fine. It won't hurt my feelings. All right? Yeah.